Well, it's been a brilliant game of Test cricket as Pat Cummins leads Australia home by just 2 wickets. They go up 1-0 in the Ashes series. A fabulous game that twisted and turned right till the end. Let's talk about that last partnership. Cummins and Lyon, number 9, number 10 playing 72 runs to get when Cummins came in. But my word, that man has ice in his veins. He didn't take an iota of pressure and led Australia over the line. A couple of tactical missteps as well, perhaps by Ben Stokes and this baseball idea they have. Let's talk a bit about that last partnership because firstly, Stokes took the new ball, the second new ball, very late. And I don't think this was a big problem because when he did eventually take the second new ball for Broad and Robinson, it didn't help England at all. It had absolutely no swing or seam movement. So that probably was a good decision by Stokes. The problem was in the field setups. When Root was bowling, there was no man down the ground. That left Pat Cummins free to just chip the ball in the air, go down the ground, and he got 14 runs for free at virtually no risk whatsoever. So I don't think that was the best idea by Ben Stokes. The second thing was when Nathan Lyon was batting, Broad and Robinson kept bowling short balls, kept bowling bouncers. And see, the thing with the bouncer is it has a 50-50 chance. Yes, it unsettles the batsman if it's a tail ender, but he just needs to swing his bat blindly and it could easily take the edge and go for 4. And Stokes didn't help himself when he dropped a catch. Granted, it was a pretty tough chance, but still Australia managed to get over the line in thrilling fashion by just 2 wickets, and they avenged the ghosts of EDGBASTON 2005 when they lost at this very ground against England by just 2 runs, chasing a very similar 280-run target. Let's go back to the first innings now though and dissect this game innings by innings because there is so much to talk about. The first innings, Crawley set the tone, started off with a 4 against Cummins. You were like, right, this is baseball at its finest. And Crawley got a pretty good 61 to be honest. Root was the star, of course, a fabulous century. Brook batted well before his freak dismissal against Lyon. Bairstow as well contributed a healthy 78. But I want to talk about the declaration that they did at the end because they were 393 for 8, a blossoming partnership between Root and Robinson. Robinson batting pretty well for a tail ender. The partnership had reached 40 plus. Why declare at that point? If 2 batsmen are set, there's 4 or 5 overs left in the day, let them play it out. They could have easily gotten 30-40 runs more. And even if Robinson got out, there was still another man yet to come, so Root could have contributed another 20-30 runs. And I think that probably cost England the game because they could easily have been 450, 460 had they not declared at that moment in time. Australia's attack, was wearied. They had been bowling for 70-80 overs, going at 5 runs and over. And I think that was a huge missed opportunity by Ben Stokes and his men. But still 393, a healthy score. Let's talk a bit about Australia's bowling in that innings. I don't think they were perfect either because their field setups were very defensive. When they saw England's batsmen were batting with intent, they were batting to score runs, they were looking to be aggressive, Pat Cummins pushed all his men back to the boundary ropes. This was a big blunder because if you push your men back to the boundary ropes, yes, they can't get boundaries, but then the batsman can take singles and doubles for free. And that's the magic of baseball. It's not those flashy boundaries you see. It's actually that the fact that they don't let dot balls pile up. They keep taking singles and doubles and singles and doubles continuously, which continues to pile up pressure on the bowling team. So I think Cummins should have done was, he should have kept the field in close, kept trying to go for wickets. Sure, who cares if there's a boundary every now and then? You're giving away just as many runs via the singles. So that's maybe something Australia can think about before the Lord's Test. Let's move on to Australia's first innings now. 386, just narrowly missed out on the lead by 7 runs. Warner, Smith, Labuschagne. The trifecta, the trio, the 3 best batsmen of the Aussie team, they did nothing at all. Granted, Warner, blunted the new ball a little bit, but Labuschagne, golden duck, Smith couldn't get going at all. And Labuschagne got out to the outswinger from Stuart Broad. You can see Stuart Broad, he's been saying for months, he's been preparing this outswinger for Smith and Labuschagne. Guess what? He did exactly that against Smith and Labuschagne, and he got Labuschagne out for a duck, got Smith in the second innings as well. So this is a major moral victory for England going into the second test. Usman Khawaja, let's talk about him. No one in the world has scored most runs since the start of 2022 in Test cricket than Usman Khawaja. He's had a stellar run of form since he was dropped and then recalled back to the Australian team. 140 here. He's the deserving man of the match. And I think it's really poetic that we talk about this series as, the baseball series, England are playing aggressively, and yet the man who's managed to conquer them has been the man who was batting at a strike rate of 35-40. So I think these are just little coincidences that cricket keeps throwing at us. A fabulous innings. The only misstep was that one time he got bowled off Stuart Broad when it turned out he had overstepped the line. An unlucky moment for England, but it's part of the game, it's their own mistake. I think the beauty of Australia's first innings was, yes, you had Khawaja at one end scoring 140, but he was continuously supported by the middle order. Head got a 50, Green got a 30, Alex Carey came in and he got another 66. He's been playing really well in these English conditions, and Cummins as well got a 35-40 run score. And this ensured that Australia always had partnerships. They didn't allow England to get a couple of quick wickets, get the momentum back, and that's why Australia were able to get 380. The only problem with Australia was that their tail barely wagged because they lost their last 4 wickets for just 14 runs. And had their tail batted a bit better as they did in the second innings, they could have easily gotten a first innings lead. From England's bowling side, I think Broad was the pick of the bowlers. Anderson didn't have a great test match, but there were a few missed opportunities of his bowling. Johnny Bairstow's keeping as well, it does leave some more material to be desired. Dropped a catch of Khawaja crucially in the second innings. That could have changed the game had he held on to that. It went between the keeper and first slip. Missed a stumping as well, I think. Another issue for England though, Moeen Ali is their main spinner, and he injured his finger. And what Moeen Ali does is he's a finger spinner, and finger spinners, they use their fingers to generate maximum spin on the ball, and he developed a blister over the finger, which is natural. I guess he's playing test cricket after 2 long years, so it does require a bit of coping up to get back to those fitness levels. And once he blistered his finger, he simply didn't have that level of spin. Got a fine as well for trying to dry his finger where the injury was. And I think that definitely hurt England. They had to go for Root, who bowled admirably in the second innings, but in the first innings it definitely cost them that Moeen wasn't at his peak performance. Let's move on now to England's second innings, and this was the one where they didn't get off to the best of starts, 28-2, wobbling a little bit. When Joe Root, Harry Brooks stitched up a pretty good partnership. What impressed me was, when England were 28-2, they did not for 1 second think that maybe we should, try to bat slowly, regroup. No, they still had the same intent. They went after Australia and they continued to play at a good strike rate, and they managed to get the momentum back from Australia. 273 overall, Cummins and Lyons taking 4 wickets apiece. Lyon, in my opinion, the pick of the bowlers. He got rid of the dangerous Root, Brooke and Bairstow, probably the 3 best batsmen in the England team. So a pretty good test for Nathan Lyon, 8 wickets in total. I think 282, if you offered that to Australia at the start of the test, perhaps they would have taken it, but I would have backed England, because 280 is a pretty high target in test cricket. The last couple of years we've had a bit flatter pitches in the 4th innings, which is why it may not seem that much. But let me remind you, Australia have not chased such a high total against England since 1948. That's 70 odd years. And it's not an easy total at all. They've only been about 250 plus chases in test cricket since 1960, which goes to show that 250 plus is not that easy to chase down. And indeed, they almost did lose it in the end. Australia's batting, Warner got off to a good start. Labuschagne and Smith failed again. And this is a big problem for them, because at the current moment in time, Australia's batting is mainly being carried by Khawaja and Travis Head. These are their 2 batsmen in form. And had you asked someone this question 3 years ago, who is carrying Australia's batting, they'd have said Warner, Smith, Labuschagne. So these 3 players do need to step up. If even one of them can perform consistently, as Steve Smith got 100 in the previous game, the WTC final, if at least one of them can keep chipping in, that's going to be really helpful for Australia and lessen the load of Khawaja, Head and Carey. But I think Australia, batting wise, there's not too much to be done, because Khawaja batted really well. He batted a bit slow though, and I don't think that's a big problem, because it's his natural playing style. Yes, he got 65 at a strike rate of about 30, but if Khawaja tries to bat at a strike rate of 50 or 60, mate, he's not going to get even 30-40, because it's not his natural playing style. He's not used to it. So I say let him play at the strike rate that he feels he can survive at most naturally. Head, Green, Carey, there were a few budding partnerships. Carey's dismissal was pretty interesting, because Carey saw that the entire down the ground field is vacant I can hit a 4 down there. He tried to come down the pitch, tried to hit Joe Root, but Joe Root took a catch after dropping 2 previously. So Carey would have been frustrated, and when Alex Carey got out, you would have thought the game's done and dusted. England's won the game, but luckily for Australia, Pat Cummins stood up to the task, Nathan Lyon as well, and they managed to pip England and get over the line. So what's next in this Ashes series, this fabulous Ashes series, because both the teams are going at it absolutely hammer and tongs, and if this first test is a preview of what to come, boy am I excited for the remaining 4. So the next game is going to be at Lord's, which has not been England's best ground historically. Couple of changes. I think England perhaps they may look at Ben Foakes, but I don't think he's going to get in because Johnny Bairstow is contributing a lot with the bat. Granted, he's not had a great test match with the gloves behind the wicket, but he's contributing so much in front of the wicket that I think they're going to keep him. The trouble for them is they don't have a spinner in their bench. Even their main spinner is Moeen Ali. He's been injured, and you can't expect Joe Root to give you 20 overs consistently. So I think that's a bit of a dilemma for them. I don't expect them to make any changes for now, but let's see what they do after the Lord's test. On Australia's side, I think Boland didn't have the best game. His bowling average has risen up by almost 3 numbers, which is a massive gain, but it's still pretty good, below 18. I think the only change is they're probably going to sub Stark in for Boland, not because Boland is a terrible player or anything, but simply to continue rotating their bowlers. It's a 6-test tour, and I think they would like to get in Stark. Mitchell Marsh, maybe he can get in. Maybe if Cam Green, if the workload on Green is too much, they could sub in Marsh for Green. But I think for now the only change is probably going to be Stark in for Boland. So I think that's all for now from the first test. It's been a fascinating game, mind. And I think if this is anything to go by, if maybe England can bring a little bit of caution to their baseball approach, and if Australia can bring in a bit of daring and nerve to their traditional approach, we could be in for a 2005 level series. That's all from the Cricketing Hour. I'm Hasan Malik, and it was a pleasure to bring you this coverage. Can't wait for the remaining 4 test matches. Allah Hafiz.